So my experience with remote interviews as an applicant was actually much more streamlined and easier than I would have expected it to be. It wasn't a one-way conversation. It was as much about what DO can do for me along with what I can do for DO. And I think that was the main thing that put me at ease, and it made me feel very valued. Hi, my name is Archana Kamath, and I'm a senior engineering manager at DigitalOcean. I manage the software networking for DO. Remote interviewing can be a challenge, especially if you're doing it for the first time, because some of these benefits of talking to somebody in person you lose. So one tip I would have is be the same way that you would be talking to a person in a normal scenario, right? Like, so that gives you the confidence, it makes you much more comfortable, and that does come across even though it is a video. These are just simple tips, right? But they can make a lot of difference. Having good lighting in the room, thinking of it like an in-person interview rather than, oh, it's just a video, and just being yourself. I think these three things are the most important. Kind of like look at your setup. Don't get too scared that it is remote. Tackle it like any other interview and just be yourself. You need to be confident and be yourself, and that does come across on the video as well. DO has a very well-defined interview process. So what usually happens is the hiring managers always work with our recruiting partners. The recruiting team reaches out to the candidates, kind of has a first chat with them, because I think it's just very important for us that we are what the candidates are looking for as well. As I said, it's not a one-way street. The first step is always a hiring manager screen, irrespective of what it is that you're applying for. We do tackle, kind of like problem-solving skills. What are the previous experiences? We do go through the resume a bit, kind of like to see what they've worked on, what motivates them, what interests them. And the next step again is for any engineering role, we always have a technical screen. That is because we are a technology company. We want to make sure whoever comes in understands the technical stack well, is able to solve those problems that are pretty core to what we do. Once the technical screen is done, we usually have about 3 rounds of technical interviews that go a little bit in depth into some of these topics. These topics depend on what the role you're interviewing for are. For networking, some of the main things that we do keep in mind are distributed systems, networking, and then we have a coding round. So usually what we do for the coding round is we give a take-home assignment, which the candidate can fill in and come back in the coding language of their choice. And the interviewer usually walks through that with them, kind of like gets their thinking process. How do they think? That's kind of like what we are tackling, the problem-solving aspect there. And once the 3 rounds are done, then the candidate usually works with our recruiting team to figure out what does the offer look like, and what are the benefits that DigitalOcean look like, and things like that. Yeah, so that kind of is our hiring process in a nutshell. As a hiring manager, what I look for are definitely what motivates the candidate, right? And given their resume, are they a good fit for the role that we are looking at? And are they a good cultural fit? I think the cultural fit part of the interview is extremely important for us at DO. We actually call ourselves the DO family. So people are extremely collaborative. So that cultural aspect of what we are looking for is extremely important. So some of the things that I look for, again, when I'm looking at cultural fit is how do people handle conflicts? Let's say a technical discussion, right? Like you are trying to get a technical idea across. Maybe not all your peers agree with you, right? And for good reasons or whatever reasons, they don't agree with you. How do you handle that situation goes a long way in showing whether you're a cultural fit or not, right? So how do you get consensus? How do you move forward? And whether you're doing it with empathy is extremely important. And that is what defines a good engineering culture versus not. So some of the very important soft skills that we at DigitalOcean care about are, the first thing I would say is communication, right? Again, when you're working with your team members to get consensus, whether you're working with your team members to kind of put forth the problem and get everybody together, rallied around a certain common goal, the main thing you need to understand is how do I communicate this, right? Like how do I talk to folks with empathy? How do I talk to folks with clarity? Second thing I would say is collaboration. at DigitalOcean, we are small teams working together on big products. It is very important that we look at it as one product rather than my project versus your project. So that having that sense of collaboration and working together, irrespective of which team people land on, is probably the second most important, skill that I would value. And I think the third one I would call out is honesty, integrity, and empathy. And I'm calling these three out together because they kind of tie in, they kind of go together. Why I'm saying honesty and integrity is I personally believe that we learn a lot from some of the mistakes that we make. I personally probably have learned so much and grown so much because I was given the environment to experiment and make those mistakes. And I personally give the same flexibility and freedom to my teams as well. Having said that, I think it is very important to acknowledge in those scenarios and kind of say, hey, this is what I've learned and this is what I'm doing going forward. So that honesty and integrity becomes a core part of how we can learn. The other side is the empathy, right? Like when you're working with people, I think the most important thing that you need to keep in mind is I'm not here to point out mistakes. I'm here to help people learn and take them with me. Getting folks along with you and helping them learn becomes a very important aspect of what helps you also grow. So these three things are probably the main things I would value as a hiring manager. So what I value the most about working at DigitalOcean, and this has been a constant for me for the past 2 years that I've been here. First thing is the love that DO has for our customers, has for our developers. We say love is at the core of what we do, and we do stand by it. So I really value that. The second thing is the love that we have for each other and for our peers, our teams. That again is something that I feel should be the core of every company. And DO does an amazing job of making sure that is fit into our company culture, and I just absolutely love that.